Hello and welcome to the Solo Coach Podcast. This is a podcast dedicated to those who feel called to take the path less followed. On this show, you'll find a mixture of solo and interview episodes covering all topics associated with personal development and living your best ever life. To find out more, visit thesolocoach.co.uk, at the Solo Coach on Insta, or David the Solo Coach on LinkedIn. And now for this week's episode. Enjoy the show. Good afternoon, Ryan.
Hello.
Welcome to the show. How are
Thank
you?
you. Yeah, I'm good. Thank you. I'm fine. I'm glad to be invited to the podcast finally.
Thank you. It's been a long time coming. I know we've both been excited about this one. So with no further ado, I shall welcome you to everyone who's listening or watching on the various platforms. Good morning, good afternoon and good evening to all of our guests and loyal supporters. It's my pleasure and honour this week to welcome my really good friend Ryan Austin, who's the founder and CEO of Big One Marketing, to the Solo Coach Podcast. Ryan created Big One back in 2023 with the aim of supporting small to medium-sized businesses with their marketing and advertising after offering his services for a few years on a freelance basis. Ryan believes that marketing really can be made easy if you know how. And this guy does. So tune in and listen in. It's going to be a great conversation. I met Ryan at one of Ian and Tracy's We Are in Business networking events. Shout out to Ian and Tracy. And since then, we've really hit it off, attending various events together, such as Northern Affinities Connect Up in Leeds. And we've even hosted our own business networking events, Friends in Business at the Tech Restaurant over in Wakefield. We're also each other's clients and have been working together for over a year. I can personally attest to Ryan's attention to detail and friendly and helpful nature, which makes working together really easy. So Ryan, to get us started, can you tell us more about your role as the founder of Big One Marketing?
Of course, yeah, and thank you for the kind words. It's always nice to hear.
Very
Um,
welcome.
so my role really is working with clients to make sure that they're getting a return on investment from their marketing, making sure that their marketing is working for them, and working with the team that we have internally to make sure that everything's running smoothly and everything's working as well as it should be. Um, I mean, I love people. I love networking. I love learning about businesses. So I love it when we get a new client and we work with them to learn everything about them. So that's really the heart of my role.
And that really shows, Ryan. Whenever I go to a networking event and you're in the room, I can almost tell you're in the room before I've even seen you, because I can either hear some laughter going on somewhere in the room, or I can hear your voice and I can see you beaming with a big smile over there in the corner, because I know that you're very, very comfortable in rooms full of other business people and build relationships really, really quickly, which is no
Yeah.
doubt an invaluable tool in the marketing business.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I mean, it's difficult. I was really nervous when I went networking at first. So if someone's there for the first time, I try to put them at ease. But also, as soon as you say marketing, everybody knows what it is, but not everybody understands how to do it, how to benefit from it. So, I like to talk about marketing. Obviously, it's what I love, but I like to communicate and educate people on what it actually is and how it can actually help them rather than just throw information at them, and then disappear into the sunset, I suppose.
Absolutely. So often on these podcasts, I tend to speak to someone about their personal journey and what led to them starting a business, and then move more into what they are specifically, what their business does. But I think let's mix it up this week. Let's go straight in with, like you said, what is marketing? But in your words, how do you define it?
I think it's standing out from the crowd in a really, really busy environment. During lockdown, businesses were opening left, right, and centre from people that were doing it as hobbies, or they were on furlough, or they were made redundant, and they wanted to make their hobby a business. And so all these businesses sort of spawned out of nowhere. And there's more and more businesses being created, so it's about standing out and being different. you know, how do you stand out? How do you be different? How do you present yourself? Why should people use you? You know, so many people have a business and they're so good at what they do, but they're missing out because they're not noticing what they're not good at. So
Mm.
it's, by being good at what you do will only take you so far because of the amount of competition. Um, so yeah, that's really, to me, marketing is standing out and being different. It's about having that marketing material, having that website where people go on and go, "Wow, I want to use this business. They are the one for me."
Thanks, Ryan. I'm wondering if to define kind of what you describe as good kind of tactics and ways of doing marketing, I wonder if it's useful with starting on what not to do and what some of the blunders are, or what are some of the things that make you go, oh, when you
Yeah.
see them.
I think for me, spelling. It's such a simple thing. I mean, I'm terrible for spelling, but there are a lot of platforms out there now, AI platforms where you can spell check things. For me, when I see posts spelt wrong, I think, you know, that's a minor, it's a major thing to get wrong. It's not a minor detail. Um, I think we worked with a client who we were doing their ad campaigns and we were getting them calls. So the purpose of the campaign was to get them calls. And they said to me, "We're not getting any calls. The phone's not going." And I was looking at analytics, and I was like, "All these conversion trackings are showing calls." So I called the number, and the number that was on all of their marketing material was wrong. They'd misprinted the number. So it was on their vans, it was on their website, which was obviously not done by us, so it wasn't tested by me. So it's just basics like that, and I just think, gosh, if we can't get that right, that's the first thing we need to fix. So it's just things like that, you know, the basics really.
Yeah, when I think about bad marketing initially, I think, yes, like you say about poor spelling or getting things like the telephone number or the email address wrong, but also it reminds me of all the emails I get on an almost daily basis to my company email address, and they're all really generic, and they've somehow put my name in there or my website name or my podcast name, but then everything else on the email feels really fake and like it doesn't like it could apply to pretty much anyone's business. And what what would you say about that style of email marketing campaign?
Yeah, I think, well, first of all, we've got to be very, very careful with how you handle data. So technically, that form of marketing isn't legal because you've not been given consent to use their email address for the purpose of email marketing. So you've got to be very careful with GDPR compliance and things. Um, and again, it goes back to standing out. You're not standing out by doing that. What I've seen through working with businesses that have done that in the past is that it's a quantity kind of game. So they're going to have to do literally thousands to get one conversion. Um, so again, it just goes back to standing out. But yeah, my advice to people doing that is don't do it because it
Yeah,
it doesn't work.
it certainly doesn't work on me, and I always do wonder in the back of my head if I'm one of 10,000 emails they've sent out today. I wonder how many have got a reply and then ended up in a sale.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, of course, outbound sales and outreach, you've got to do it. But for me, when I do it, I like to research the business that I'm doing it and decide, can I actually help them? Two, is it someone that I actually do want to work with? And number three, do they need our support? And then I kind of outline that in a very personalized approach, um, because I found that scattergun approach, like I said, you have to speak to thousands of people to get one, um, and it's challenging for that to work in my experience from what I've seen. Um,
yeah, it's interesting. Before the call, we had a great conversation about how to differentiate yourself in 2026, which is clearly a really competitive time and a difficult time for a lot of businesses. And I wanted to ask you, what have you seen, and what do you believe works best in marketing for small to medium sized businesses in 2026, the era of AI?
Yeah, I think it's just be unique. A lot of it is understanding the algorithms, on social media and platforms like Google and Microsoft and platforms like advertising platforms. It's about understanding the algorithm. It's about being consistent. So on social media, if you post one time a week, that's fine as long as you're consistent, as long as it's high quality. Um, and to answer your question of what not to do, don't pop up and go, oh, I need more sales, so I'm going to post 10 times this week on LinkedIn and hope that someone sees it and buys my services. It's about consistency, and it's about um, sort of becoming that brand where people come to you because you're the best, not because you shout the loudest.
So reputation. I've heard the random posting being called post and hope,
Yeah.
almost for the best.
Yeah, it's a really easy trap to fall into if you don't understand, why consistency is important on social media, and you're not sort of knowledgeable about the algorithm. It's a very easy trap to fall into, posting daily on Facebook or posting daily on social media for no reason, other than to hopefully get some bites from it. But normally when you're marketing certain things on social media, it's normally months down the line that you actually see a return. So that's what we always say to our clients and to people that we meet at networking events and so on is it's not immediate. So you can't just do it when you need the work or do it when you need the inquiries. You need to do it all year round so that you get that constant flow. And I think, David, you said earlier, same same results. If you're doing the same thing all the time, you're going to get the same results. It's the same with social media. If you're being consistent, you'll get a consistent number of inquiries.
It's funny, isn't it? How the basics always apply. It feels a bit like the same can be said about healthy eating or exercise. What you do once in a while won't make much difference, no matter how grand it is. It's what you do consistently on a repetitive, like regular basis, and you keep it going through the hard times, the good times, when business is thriving or when business is a bit slower, to ensure kind of marketing and advertising all year round to compensate for the peaks and troughs of demand.
Yeah, exactly that. Consistency. Um, yeah, it's exactly that. It's
And
all
then in
about
terms,
consistency.
oh, thanks, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. And then in
No,
terms of posting itself, I know posting on social media is a bit of an art, and it varies very much per flat platform. And I've heard things like, oh, testimonials are your best friend, or talk about who you are as your business owner, show your personality rather than trying to educate people, but also then do educational posts as well to show your knowledge. And it feels a bit like a minefield. So I wonder what strategy you'd recommend, or does it depend on what kind of business you've got in
I
terms of
think
what sort of posts to do?
it definitely depends on the kind of industry that you're in and also the kind of market that you're appealing to. So, for example, I had a meeting with a travel agent earlier, and they want to tailor their marketing to the older demographic, typically looking to book cruises or bucket list holidays. So, the way in which they speak and the way in which they present themselves will be a lot different to someone who maybe wants to target the younger demographic to do, stags and hen do's and that kind of holiday. So here you have two businesses that are in the same industry, but their marketing will be completely different because of who they're marketing for, the platforms that they're using. So their strategy will be massively different. I think what's important in today's world with AI being, on everybody's kind of radar is being a bit human and being different. So, have a tone of voice that your brand uses and sticks to, and again, consistency. Use that consistently to represent your brand and yeah, be human. So don't just say this is what we do. Say this is why we do it. this is how we do it, and this is why we should be your number one choice. So yeah, it's massively. There obviously is some overlaps, but social media strategy should be very, very unique to every single business, and their approach should be very, very unique.
Which is why you guys offer a tailored solution.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's why, we don't have a one size fits all kind of package. We're very much, um, you know, let's learn about your requirements, let's learn about your budget, let's learn about where you are now and where you want to be, what aims and objectives you have, and that kind of thing. And then we put something tailored together. And that's the reason why, is because when it comes down to marketing, it's not a one size fits all kind of thing, especially social media.
You mentioned earlier, Ryan, about the how sometimes there can be quite a delayed return on investment with marketing, and it can take a while to see the results. And I know, you read business books, it talks a lot about A/B testing. Go into a room, try pitch A, and then the next room, try pitch B, see which one works the best. And it's the results can be quite instant, but it sounds like with marketing, the results can be somewhat delayed, or in some cases, really delayed. So how does one go about measuring the success of a marketing campaign and a marketing strategy without either A, giving it not enough time, or B, giving it way too much time and not, how do you change the right amount versus change too much too often?
Yeah. I think it's dependent on the strategy. So organic marketing, like posting organically on social media and SEO and those kind of organic marketing strategies will always take a lot longer than like paid advertisement, like pay per click, Google, Meta ads, that kind of thing. Um, I think with regards to tracking it, it's really important that you get the tracking in from day one, and it's really important that from day one, you're aware of what's working and what's not working so that you can do more of what's not working and less of what's not working. I think whilst we always say that it's going to take time to get a return on investment and results don't happen overnight, there should be some sort of improvement from the start. So there should be some sign within the first month. There should be some signs that what we're doing is working. So that might be in the form of inquiries, that might be in the form of calls, that might be in the form of website visitors, it might be in the form of followers on social media, whatever it may be. There should be some sort of sign that what we're doing is working. And then from a financial point of view, really, by the end of a 3 month period of time, we would expect to see clients receiving a return on investment financially from their marketing strategies. So, if it's an ad, for example, we would expect to see a certain amount of website clicks convert into paying customers for our clients.
I see. So there's clearly a lot more ways to measure the success of a campaign other than say just revenue in the business. You can measure it from, like say, number of clicks or number of website traffic, lots of different KPIs to indicate this is working, this is generating some interest, which will more than likely generate more revenue for the business,
Yeah.
or this isn't working so well, so let's tweak it or scrap it and try something else.
Yeah, and I think that comes down to the marketing agency as well. There's a lot of marketing agencies that do set campaigns up and then leave them for the month, and then you know don't really monitor them. Whereas if we're quite hands on and we're quite honest, so if a campaign's not working, we'll be honest and say, look, this isn't quite hitting the spot. Let's have a look at why. But it's really important that you get the right conversion tracking in place. So if for example you're doing Facebook posts, make sure that you're on the Meta Business Suite so that you're looking at the insights on there so that you can see what the content interactions have been, what the most popular post is, um, how it compares to last month's performance. And if it's, SEO or ads and you're looking at getting website clicks, make sure you've got like something like Google Analytics set up. So again, you can track what where people are coming from, what they're doing when they're on the website, and is the campaign worth doing or not?
Mm. I'm wondering as well. Ryan, in your work, do you ever get the challenge of the product itself that your client is trying to advertise might need some work, or perhaps the way it's wrapped, the way it's described might need some work in itself? And is that something that you pull into your offering, or is it something you'd recommend someone else to work with? What would you say on that?
I think it definitely depends. So, for example, if we're doing a Google ad, let's say, or a Microsoft ad, for a website, and the website's not quite up to scratch, that's something we could go to the client and say, look, we're paying Google thousands of pounds or hundreds of pounds to get website visitors, but when we get website visitors, they're not clicking on anything because the website isn't where it needs to be. We can help. On occasion, it might be the service of the company. So we had it recently where we were running campaigns for an engineering firm, and the idea of the campaign was to collect calls, but the person on the reception desk at the time wasn't very friendly. So they weren't getting conversions because their business just wasn't present. The website and what was said on the website and what was sold to the people on the website wasn't reflected in the customer service. So again, there's only so much that we can do. In that case, we can't really control that. We can offer advice, and we can bite the bullet and be a bit straight up with them in that case, and hope that they do something about it. And then sometimes if it's a physical product, or sometimes even if it's a service, it might be that the service isn't fantastic or the product isn't that great, in which case we would say the analytics are suggesting that the potential's there, the clicks are there, but when they're not converting, it might be because the product needs reviewing, or the service needs reviewing, or the process needs reviewing. And again, we can only advise on that. It's then up to the client to fix any internal problems. But we will only help businesses that we know we can help.
Mm.
So we
Yeah.
won't take anybody's money. If the campaign's not working, we're not going to take any money to keep on running it if we think the problem is with them, or with their product or with their service. We won't do it for the sake of it.
That actually leads me really nicely. It sets me up actually for a question I wanted to ask you today. I know in business, I've heard a lot about, in some of the events we've been to, about the importance of choosing the right client for you and the importance of refusing a client that's not really the right client at all. Because I know it's particularly early on in your business journey, it's so tempting to say yes to any kind of paid work that's going, but then sometimes that comes at a cost later down the line when you know underneath that there's some, I've got some doubts, I've got some questions, and I'm wondering how you have experienced that in your business and how you're able, from your more experienced point of view, to decide on, yeah, this client, this is a big green light. I'm happy to go with this client, or actually, this one doesn't feel quite right now.
I think for me, it's. I mean, this is probably quite similar to you, David, in coaching. Is they've got to be invested in it. So, occasionally we'll speak to, it might be a business development manager, or it might be a director or whoever, and they're not that keen on marketing. They're not, they don't seem over enthusiastic. I kind of get the impression that they're going to leave everything to me, and if I need an internal point of view, or I need some feedback on how campaigns are working, or I need content, they're probably going to be nowhere to be seen, or hard to get a hold of. I wouldn't say it's become easier to sift those out, um, because I think I've always been quite good at reading people and knowing if they're actually invested in it or not. But yeah, I think that for me, when I go to meet potential new clients, that's the thing I look out for is, do they seem bothered about it? Because if they are, you can work with them. So if there are hurdles like campaigns are not working, or content's not as good as it could be, or I need a point of view from someone internal to the business, I want their opinion on something, on how something might work. you know I need them to be invested in it.
Thanks for that, Ryan. It's definitely one of the lessons I've learned in business. I think several people will be nodding when I say this. Sometimes the client you've chosen that's knocked you down the most on price ends up taking the most time to work with and can end up be quite challenging to work with versus another client who's just been a breeze right from the beginning and there hasn't ever been any
Yeah.
issues with the price can then be much more easy and pleasurable to work with. And you end up down the line kicking yourself thinking, do you know what? Given the chance again, I think I would have said no to that first one.
I think you're right. You're definitely right. I don't. I've not spoken to a business owner from networking or wherever else, and they've not said that. There's always that one you go, oh, I wish we hadn't have taken this client, or I wish I would have listened more. And I think nowadays it is becoming hard where businesses need that cash flow. So, clients that they might have previously said, oh, no to, they're now saying, yeah, okay, we'll do it. Or, businesses that previously would have said, no, that's the price, are now negotiating on price a little bit. We try to be flexible, and I know you are, David, because you're very kind. So if someone says to you, can we negotiate a little bit, you'll more than likely do it because you're trying to help them, you're trying to be nice. But I think you've got to know what's nice and what's selling yourself short.
Yeah, yeah, that's there's so much truth in what you've just said there. Definitely. There's a lot more I could say on that as well. But it's interesting. My coach I was talking to yesterday, my coaching supervisor, Julie, she came out with an interesting comment. She said, be careful not to confuse marketing with sales. Like marketing and sales are both important, and I think there's a bit of a risk you can hide behind marketing, whereas in reality, you need to focus more of your time and effort on the sales. I'm wondering, as I can see you nodding, what you'd say about that and how businesses can get that balance right to ensure that they, like we said at the beginning, it's chicken and the egg, isn't it?
Yeah, I think you're right. You're right in saying sales and marketing are two different things. Um, I think it depends on the business size and obviously where you're at. Like, for example, McDonald's, they probably don't have to do any sales now because everyone knows who they are. They don't need to really tell anybody who they are and what they do. Everybody knows who they are. Whereas if you're a new business, it is going to be a heavy amount of sales, picking up the phone and emailing and going into businesses, whatever it may be, for them to hear about you for the first time. I think it's really important that the marketing materials back up what you're selling them. So, for example, if it's a service based business and you're going in and saying, have a look at this service brochure that we have, that service brochure has to be in down south we say the nuts. It has to be the nuts. It has to be brilliant because if it's not, what you're selling them, they you've lost interest. Like more than likely, as the minute you've walked out, that booklet that's doesn't sing and dance about what you do is likely gone in the bin. So
Yeah.
it's about having the marketing materials to back it up. And I think again, it comes down to a no one size fits all. So some businesses will invest more in sales because they have to, and some businesses will invest more in marketing because they're more comfortable with that. So yeah, it depends on what industry you're in and also where in your business journey you are.
Mm, that's interesting. And my mother always says you only get one chance to make a first impression. I think it's so true. You don't get a second chance at that. It is, as the phrase goes, a first impression.
Yeah.
So
And
it's
that's
really important.
marketing materials that do that. So the sales is, you're going in and you're talking about what you do and what you offer, but the marketing material has to back it up. If you're giving your business card and it's got a website URL on there and they go on and have a look, are you proud of that website? If you're not, then you shouldn't be going out and doing the sales part. So
Mm,
they have to work hand in hand. In my,
yeah, I've heard that phrase banded around quite a lot in business networking events again. Know, like, trust. People
yeah.
need to know you or feel they know you, and that they like you and that they trust you in order to complete that circle. And then and only then will they actually buy your product.
Yeah, I think that's, people buy from people. I think that's definitely true. when I need a product or a service, I always look at, well, do I know anybody, first of all? Do I know anybody from networking? Do I know anybody from, have I seen anybody advertise on social media that has good reviews? Do I know anybody that's recently had that product or service that I can ask them for a referral? Um, People buy from people, and people buy from brands and people that they know and trust.
Mm. You mentioned earlier, Ryan, about the importance of a business as positioning ourselves as being reputable and trustworthy and having a high quality product. I'm wondering, for all the small business owners that are listening, what's one thing they could do today to like improve their social media presence and specifically thinking about how to, you know, build that reputation because it as a small business owner myself as a coach it's hard to position myself as best in class when you're up against the likes of people like Tony Robbins with these giant coaching empires or action coaching, but my offering is unique and it's personal to me. It might not necessarily be the best coaching out there, it's hopefully not the worst,
Yeah,
but that feels not it feels less relevant whether it's the best possible thing that you can get. It feels more important that the client will come and they'll get their outcomes that they're looking for, and
yeah,
therefore the product will serve them and deliver to them the value that they're looking for.
yeah. Well, I think when I look at social media or when I look at websites or marketing material, I always look for is it solving my problem? So I always look for posts that say we can help with X, Y, Z. They call it like a pain point. It's solving a problem for me. Then I look for, well, what's the benefit of it? Is it if it's health and well-being, it improves your health. If it's coaching, it helps you become more sort of you have to answer to someone. I can't think of the word.
Coached.
Coach, yeah, coach. Like like I'll look for the benefit of it, and then I'll look for the social proof, so the testimonials, the case studies, that kind of thing as well. So it's all about presenting yourself as, well, what problems do you solve? How do you solve them? Why do you solve them? And why are you the person to solve them?
Yeah. And speaking to clients' pain points and knowing
Yeah,
your, well, ICP, I think they call it, knowing your ideal client profile, exactly
yes,
who you're targeting and what they are struggling with, what they would like to be their reality, what's their actual reality, and using their words and their terminology to speak directly to them, so that in a sea of words and videos and TikToks and LinkedIn posts, they're going to read your post and it's going to actually land versus just scroll past it.
yeah. I think it depends with what industry you're in, but as well as don't just bang on about what you do, because with all due respect, you love it, but it can get boring. Um, you know, do something a little bit outside the box. Red Bull is a fantastic example. If you look at Red Bull's social media, very, very rarely do they actually post about Red Bull energy drink. They 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 put together content that sells an experience. It sells the feeling. It doesn't sell the product. Um, so don't fall into the trap of just posting who you are and what you do, but think outside the box a little bit with content and marketing.
Yeah, I've definitely seen that with like Apple adverts
Yeah,
and BMW car adverts. You can
Cadbury's my
see,
favourite. The Cadbury button one at Christmas,
oh yeah, what do they do with that one?
where they go on and they pay with buttons, so they don't pay with money. They go into a shop and they pick up a bar of Cadbury's and they pay with buttons rather than coins. And it's normally a child buying it for their parents or for whoever grandparents. But it's like and until the end of the advert, you don't know who it's for, but it's selling that feeling, that emotion. It's getting people emotionally linked so that they don't forget about it.
It's very, very clever. It sometimes makes me think how on earth we're supposed to differentiate ourselves when we're up against, this multi-billion dollar industry that's marketing. But then it does work. I've seen lots of little sort of self-employed people with small businesses um, that do an absolutely cracking job of marketing, And every post, there's some people on LinkedIn I follow, and almost every post that I see of theirs, I like it, I comment it, I sometimes reshare it because I just enjoy what they have to say. It feels really authentic, feels very relatable, and I feel like when I see them, I'll say, I know I haven't met you in weeks, but I feel like I saw you only last week because I
Yeah.
have the perception that I know them because they post quite often on social media. So it's easy to stay in touch. You're a great example of that, Ryan. You're always really active. And I'd say, is it fair to say you spend as much time on social media commenting on other people's posts as you do commenting on your own? Which makes me think there's a skill in there. Social media is not just a post and forget, set and forget job, is it?
No, particularly LinkedIn. Obviously, with the industry that I'm in, LinkedIn is a big focus for me. But for all platforms, but mostly LinkedIn as well. Um, you know, going on and commenting before and after you post will likely increase engagement on your post. So it's like, say, for example, I go on LinkedIn and I see a post from you and I comment, "Oh, David, that burger looks amazing," or whatever it might be. And then I post 10 minutes later, you've come on LinkedIn to respond to my comment, and guess what you see? My post. So then obviously the idea is you then like mine. So it's like a like for like kind of platform. Every platform's like it, but LinkedIn's algorithm um, is the hottest for that. It looks to see what you're engaging with, who you're engaging with, um, and effort equals reward. If you put the effort in, you'll get the engagement rates there. So I always try to be very active on other people's posts, selfishly to get some engagement on mine, but also because I do enjoy reading other people's posts. I do enjoy reading other people's tips and tricks, and uh, you know, like an accountant put on their tips for saving on tax. Who doesn't want to save on tax? So it's like I do enjoy reading them and I do enjoy engaging with them, but selfishly it helps me as well.
Yeah, it's interesting because what I know what I won't hear you saying on social media is that this is the platform. You don't use this platform, use this platform, or this platform's dead, or all of those sort of shocking one-liners that you see that are designed to perhaps draw you in, but in reality are maybe not so true. What would you say on that like choice of platforms?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because everybody in marketing has their own opinion about this. So I have a client and we work in with their in their offices in their team. So they've got a small marketing team and I kind of help them and give an outside perspective. And I work with them every month. And they had someone come in for PR because we don't do PR. So they had someone come in and they were going to be helping out with a little bit of PR. And I was asked to sit in the meeting. And they had asked them that question, are there any platforms that you recommend we join? And they said, well, more is more. So join them all. And I actually said, I don't agree with that. I really don't agree with that. More is not more. I think if you're on one platform and you're doing it well, that's enough. Don't be on three platforms and do them all badly. Stick to one or two and do them well enough. I think when it comes down to choosing the platform, choose the platform that is where your client base hang out. Don't think about, what you should be on. Like I met someone at a networking event and they weren't on LinkedIn and I thought, why? And it's because their target market isn't on LinkedIn. So that completely makes sense that they wouldn't be on LinkedIn. So pick a platform, one or two, do it well. Don't go in and do every single platform just because you think that reaches more people, because it doesn't necessarily reach more people, especially if you do it badly. So yeah, it's all about knowing your target audience, who they are, what they do, what their habits are, where they hang out. Join that platform and forget about the others, because if you spread yourself too thin, the output is not going to be very good, and you're going to end up with no followers, no likes, and the only people that like your post then are your mum, your dad, and your Uh,
I can really relate to that, Ryan, because over half of my clients are not on LinkedIn, but LinkedIn's my preferred platform. So I myself operate across LinkedIn and Instagram as my two social medias. But I do prefer LinkedIn, and I do spend more time on LinkedIn. I like long form posts, and I like, reading, like I say, a longer post. I like the platform. I enjoy it more. I find Instagram a bit distracting, and I get frustrated by so many adverts. But like you say, it would be foolish for me to just focus on LinkedIn, given that more than half my client base aren't on LinkedIn. Um,
yeah,
but I think if I forced myself over to like TikTok, despite the fact I don't and ignored the fact I don't want to be on like TikTok at all, that I'm sure would show in the quality of my content. So I'm,
yeah,
yeah, quite conscious about that one. But I only realized that when someone asked me that very question of, well, which platforms are your ideal clients on and existing clients on? And I had that realization of, oh my goodness, I didn't think of it like that.
yeah. I think it's really easy to get sucked into. I'll do everything because then I'll reach the most amount of people. Um, unfortunately it doesn't work like that. So, I mean, for me, my personal favorite platform is LinkedIn because I think it's a little bit more positive than Facebook, which I'm quite glad about because most of my client base are on LinkedIn, so that's perfect. Um, but yeah, I actually made the mistake at the beginning of being on every platform. So Big One Marketing had an Instagram, Big One Marketing had a TikTok, Big One Marketing had a Facebook, it had a LinkedIn, it had a Twitter at the time, now X. And I ended up with I was concentrating on LinkedIn and I always say do as I say and not as I do because all of them had kind of taken a back seat. So in the end I just deleted them because they weren't getting the engagement because I weren't putting the effort in to them platforms because I didn't have the time. So I would say one or two platforms, do it properly.
Yeah, yeah, I like that. And I'm wondering if it's a good time to pivot across to kind of thinking about your business, big one marketing, and your founder journey. What have been some of the challenges that you've faced along the way, and what's supported you through those challenges?
Um, too many, too many challenges. Um, I think, and again, David, probably something you can relate to with coaching is we're kind of selling something people can't see. So, people don't really understand SEO. People don't really understand Google Ads. They don't really understand what goes on in the background for marketing campaigns. So it's selling something that people can't see. So it's getting them to understand the value of it. Um, it's getting them to understand why it's an investment and not a cost. That's definitely been a really big hurdle for us. Um, and then I think as well, what's been a big hurdle is the amount of businesses that say that they're marketing agencies because they can post on social media. So you'll have people that are you know fresh out of school or whatever it may be, no qualifications, but they can post on social media, so they think that they're social media geniuses and they think that they're marketing experts. So they're working with businesses and then maybe not getting the results that the businesses expect. And then we have to kind of come in and try to reassure them that, you know, that's not really marketing. That's basic social media content. So that's been a big hurdle. Um, you know, and yeah, I think the biggest one is getting people to understand the value of something that they can't really see. And sometimes they don't understand, which makes it harder. They don't understand the benefits. So that's definitely been a big challenge.
I can totally relate to that, Ryan. Thank you for sharing it. I can not only in coaching, like you say, similar challenge there, but also like in years of working in IT departments, so many different businesses and different teams, but the challenge always seemed to remain trying to convince the business that IT was an enabler of the business's success and not just a cost. And you can tell when it's seen as a cost because typically in the org structure, IT just reports into the CFO because it's
Yeah,
like the IT gets just bolted onto finance, so finance can, watch the bottom line and keep a close eye on how much they're spending because IT are typically very expensive in companies. But if you see them as less of an expense and you partner with them, you know that department can add such a lot of value to the business, a bit like your marketing can, and a bit like your coaching or your learning and development professionals can really add value and sustain the business for the long term and reduce turnover rates and increase and improve staff retention. But unless you invest in these areas, you'll never see the benefits and you might
yeah,
just suffer uh, on and on and on without realizing what you're missing out on.
yeah. And I think like just when you mention about IT, everybody can do IT, or everyone thinks they can do IT, but it's knowing when to outsource and knowing when to hand stuff over to the experts to get um a better outcome. Like you say, it's an investment, not a cost.
And what would you say to a business owner that's perhaps teetering on the edge of becoming a victim of their own success in that they've got plenty of custom coming in, but they're finding that as a solo business owner, there's only so many hours in the day, and as a result, their marketing, their social media presence is taking a hit because they are simply really busy doing, working in their business and haven't got so much time to work on their business.
Yeah,
And if they're teetering on the edge of investing, but they're quite concerned about, the value that, say, bringing big one marketing into their business might add, but they know they need to, but they're putting it off and putting it off and putting it off and putting it off. What would you say to them to perhaps help them to make that decision?
yeah. I think pick up the phone and let's have a chat. Um, Typically, we would say decide on internally what your aims are, what are you looking to achieve. That doesn't necessarily have to be, we want to do 2,000 in sales next month, or we want to double our workload in the next 6 months. We can help with aims like that, but decide where you want to be, which I suppose is probably when they need to have a conversation with someone like you. You know, are you happy working on your own? Because some people are, and that's fine. We've done the websites for some trade businesses and they're at full capacity for themselves and they're happy with that. And that's fine. But then some businesses want to grow and they want to expand. They don't want to be one man bands all the time. So I think decide what you want to do, what avenue you want to go down. Make sure that you're in a place financially to invest because we don't want anybody to invest in our services that if because if our marketing doesn't work, if it doesn't work for them for whatever reason, then we don't want them to be struggling for money. We don't want that to be their downfall, so to speak. So yeah, I mean, decide what you want to be, how big you want to be, and then let's have a chat and see if we can help. Um, like I say, some businesses are quite happy being one man bands, but if you want more, then there's gonna have to be certain processes, certain things that you introduce, certain things that you change. For example, you can't do all the work. You're gonna have to let some of it go, but then you're obviously much more qualified to support and guide people through that than what I would be.
Thank you, Ryan. I'm going to cash in on your compliments. And as we start to bring the conversation to a close, I'm just going to ask you some quick fire questions. I mean, firstly, what made you decide to sign up for coaching and what difference did it make to your business?
Well, obviously we met, and it was a long time. Well, it was a long time after I met you that I decided that I wanted to give it a go. The reason I wanted to give it a go was because I was having the hurdles of at what point do I employ somebody? At what point do I let go? And what do I let go of first? And I kind of had it in my mind of where I wanted to be, but I had no roadmap. And I think after speaking with you and after a couple of coaching sessions, well, very, very quickly, actually, I saw a benefit, saw a return, and I had that roadmap in place. We'd outlined some of my goals, but also more than that is being a business owner can be lonely, you know, and marketing for Big One Marketing has always been my biggest challenge. I find it a lot easier to do it for other people than I do for me. I tend to overthink my marketing and my sales. So it was nice to have someone to say, David, what do you think about this? Or David, I've thought about this. What do you think? Or how would you feel if you were on the receiving end? And to get some feedback that was not just honest, but also constantly wanting to do better. So yeah, that's really good. But have you thought about X, Y, Z? So that was a really, really big help for me.
Thanks, Ryan. No, it's funny you mentioned about the difficulties of representing yourself. You'd think, Ryan, head of a marketing company, he's, marketing for his own company, that's going to be a breeze, but it's not. And it's actually, that's the same across the board. I was at a networking event on Monday and we joked that we should create a completely anti-networking event where you're not allowed to talk about yourself, but you can talk about anyone else in the room, or maybe you have one buddy where it's your job to advertise them. So you'd be advertising me, Ryan, and my services, and I'd be advertising you and your services. And we all went, oh my goodness, that would be so much easier because
Yeah,
it's so much easier to talk about someone else's business and wax lyrical about them. You don't feel awkward, you don't feel self-conscious, you don't feel the imposter syndrome. It's all gone. But when
yeah,
it comes to talking about yourself, it's so hard for so many of us to do that without feeling a little bit icky.
yeah. Oh, it is, and it's hard, at a networking event, and I can think of loads of nice things to say about you, and I can think of loads of nice things to say about other networking pals. But if I was to stand there and go, well, I'm fantastic. I'm really nice to work for. I'm really nice. I'm really easy to get along with, and I'm always on the other end of a phone to support you and help you. Well, some people might go away and think, well, he's a bit big-headed and a bit, rightfully so. So it's a lot easier, isn't it, to market for other people than it is for you and shout from the rooftops about other people. Um, So yeah, that's a really good idea, actually. I really like that idea for a networking event.
Which is what, and that's why anyone listening, that's why you need to bring Ryan and his team on board into your business. I'm reading a book at the moment, The Seven Habits of Highly Effective People, and it's saying in last night's chapter was saying you can get so far being completely dependent on others, probably not very far. You can also get so far being completely independent and doing everything on your own shoulders. But the key to lasting and success at the highest level is to become interdependent. So to realize that you're part of a bigger system and then to work with other people to leverage their expertise, to create teams, to collaborate, and then to build something really big and that'll outlast you, that's far bigger than just you. The key is, teamwork. And I absolutely agree. Bringing someone on board into your business, especially a marketing, expert like yourself, it's gonna pay for itself in the long run. So you've got to sometimes take a leap of faith, and I think the same for people who are interested in signing up with coaching. You don't know until you know, so you've got to take a leap of faith and give it a try to
Yeah,
realize, oh, there's something in this.
yeah, definitely. You've got to both marketing and coaching. You've got to give it a try. Like I said earlier, you've got to be invested. So if you're half-hearted, maybe wait until certain situations change or things change. But yeah, give it a go. Definitely for coaching, it's been really a really big benefit for me. And I've still got coaching book where I put all of our notes, and even that, just having that place to write down and brainstorm. I know you love your whiteboards, don't you, David? I love my notebooks. So just to get pen on paper and to get ideas out, even that was stress relieving in itself.
If only you sold branded notebooks, Ryan, eh?
Yeah, yeah.
So last of my not so the second to last of my not so quick fire questions, because we're both such good talkers. Um, if someone's listening, to all the people who are listening are interested in finding out more and getting in touch with you, what's the best way and the best places that people can go to find you, Ryan?
So LinkedIn is probably the best place. My name's Ryan Austin. If you search for me, there should be a picture of this ugly mug on there. Um, and or drop me an email, ryan@bigonemarketing.co.uk. I'm happy to have a chat. If you're local, we can grab a coffee, and if not, we'll grab a virtual one.
Brilliant. And I'll put your links down at the bottom, in the show notes so people can get in touch. I highly recommend reaching out to Ryan and following him on LinkedIn, because he's also someone who will like and comment on and reshare your posts. So you are a lovely connection to have on LinkedIn, Ryan.
Appreciate
Um,
that.
and I know that it's very genuine. So thank you for that. And finally, bit of a big question. If you could share one message right now and the whole world were listening, what would you say?
Oh, gosh, that's a big one.
It is, isn't it?
Invest in
I quite like putting
marketing.
people on the spot.
Yeah. Invest. No. Um, I think give it a go. Have that conversation. Have that conversation. What I've learned through people like you and coaching is if you're not sure, have a conversation, because if you walk away from it and you decide that it's not for you, or that's I'm not the right partner, or whatever, what's the worst that could happen? There's no cost, no catch, no commitment. So just have that conversation with anybody, not just me, but any service provider, anybody. Have a conversation.
I love it, Ryan. I echo your words. Find out if you're interested in something, find out more, figure it out, get some more information, do your research, because information is typically free in the era that we live in. So if you've got the time, why not just lean into it and find
Yeah,
out?
we always try to give something of value. So even, you know, people that don't convert into paying clients at Big One Marketing, I like to think that they've still walked away with some value. And David, I know that even before I started doing paid sessions with you, I got free value. So what's the worst that could happen?
Absolutely. The very worst that can happen is that you can just have a nice coffee and then walk away.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the show, Ryan. As discussed before, once we start moving into some studio episodes, it would be an absolute pleasure to have you back on the show. And we won't leave it so long next time
Yeah.
until we speak. But yeah, thank you for coming on the show. Thank you to everyone for listening,
Yeah.
and
Thank
look
you.
forward to seeing you all in a future episode. Bye for now,
Yeah.
Ryan.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to the Solo Coach podcast. I've been your host, David Garwood, and you've been my fabulous listener. If you'd like to find out more, check out thesolocoach.co.uk, at the Solo Coach on Insta, and David the Solo Coach on LinkedIn. And if you enjoyed the episode, I would love for you to leave a comment or a review and tell me what you enjoyed most about this week's episode. I'll see you again soon. Bye for now.